Hello and happy Tuesday. Happy tip-off Tuesday. People like to say Taco Tuesday. It's tip-off Tuesday for us here in Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Sprunger, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, it is tip-off Tuesday. Do you prefer that over Taco Tuesday?
Yeah, when it means tipping off the season, college basketball, I'll take the start of another college basketball season over a Taco Tuesday, just about any day of the week, not just on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Well, sure. And don't get me wrong, I like me a taco, but you
Right.
know what? Give me a tip-off, like you said, any day over a taco, and I'll be a happy man. So the Boilermakers tip off the 2025-26 basketball season tonight against the Evansville Purple Aces at Mackey Arena, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Grant, it's happening.
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
your
We
thoughts?
I'm excited to
Yep.
see the first official game. Like
Yep.
this is where things get real, and the number one team in the country is ready to start the season well. But obviously it's going to be interesting because Evansville, not the strongest of opponents, we would imagine. Coming off a rough season a year ago with a lot of roster turnover, it's hard to know kind of what we're looking at here.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't expect, even amongst mid majors, I wouldn't expect this team to be the strongest. But I think there are a lot of things Purdue can gain from this game anyway.
For sure. Well, at the very least, is to get into game mode of games matter mode, I guess. Um, excuse me. The two exhibitions. I've seen again. After Kentucky got beat, of course, I'm on social media just seeing what people. I don't get fired up about it, but they're like, "Well, what's this say about Purdue?" It says nothing about Purdue. It really does. It says nothing about Kentucky. Honestly, the only thing it does is proves that exhibitions are just that. They're exhibitions. Things can happen, and they have no bearing on what your overall look for the season should be. It really is a matter of their tune-ups for when they do matter. So those two games, the game against UND and a game against Kentucky, win, loss, draw, doesn't matter. It got them ready for tonight. This is when the tip-offs matter, and this is when you look at what happens during the game, in and out, the rotations, while they're still using them to get used to and get into postseason shape. These matter. This is when we start analyzing really what happened.
Yeah, and the thing we have to remember, starting with the Kentucky exhibition, but incorporating today's game and incorporating the future games in the season,
Yeah.
college basketball is not linear. It's not like you can say, oh, this team beat that team and that team lost to that team, so therefore this team is better than the other team. Like that, the transitive property is what that's called. That doesn't apply in college basketball.
Right.
On any given night, one team can beat another. And so on one standpoint, you could look at it like, oh, Georgetown beat Kentucky and they beat Purdue, so Georgetown might be better than Purdue.
Georgetown's the number one team in the country.
Right.
Give them
Like
the
that
national title.
transitive property would suggest that. But
Right.
I don't think anyone's making the argument that Georgetown's number one. Georgetown might be better than Purdue. We don't know at this point because the season hasn't started. I don't believe that. I think Purdue is one of the best teams in the country, and I think Georgetown might be better than what they've been in previously. Probably not to that level, though. But the point is, it's not linear. It's about getting better, coming in and playing your best basketball night in and night out, and ultimately playing better in March than you did at the start of the season. And this game is the first step along that path for Purdue.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they, the past, couple of years, the number one team ranked in the country to start out the season didn't do so hot going into March. I don't see that being still the case this year. That's not saying anything about Kansas both the previous years, because they were the ones that were number one both years, and they both years they faltered and they fell. That's not to say. And here's the thing: it's not impossible that Purdue falls off the face of the planet. I mean, you'd be silly to say, well, there's no way that happens. It's possible, but I just don't see it happening I didn't study Kansas the past 2 years, so I don't know if what their dynamic was. But with Kansas, they were adding pieces that were supposed to be huge pieces. Purdue kept their huge pieces, and they added pieces around those pieces. That's what gives me the warmth and understanding and comfort of thinking, you know what, this is going to be a really, really good season. And it there might be more losses than I anticipate, but I honestly think Purdue's one of the better teams in the country, and they will be hanging around pretty late into March.
Yeah, to your point, the reason Purdue's number one and the reason it feels like they should be is because of their retention, and they bring back the best core out of anybody in the country.
Yep.
And you couldn't say that for the past couple of Kansas teams. And North Carolina, this was going back like 3 years ago to their preseason number one. They brought back quite a bit, but it was from a team that really didn't have a great season prior, but had a deep run in March. So everyone rated them number one. When those guys weren't consistent enough to actually handle that. So, yeah, to your point, I feel like we have a number one that's more legitimate as a top team in the nation. But with that being said, I don't think any of the past 3 years you would have asked somebody, hey, do you think the number one team in the country is going to lose their first or second round game of the tournament or not even make the tournament? They would have said, no, this team's a championship contender. We're early in the season, so of course we feel that way about Purdue. Time will tell how true that is.
Yeah. Well, so let's dive into the Purple Aces. They like you mentioned, they're coming off a season last year that was kind of a rough one for them. This year, it's the first time since Matt Painter's first season as a coach that they're playing Evansville. It's the first time since 2005 that these two teams have met, and the last time they played, Grant, Evansville beat Purdue. It was not at Mackey, though.
Yeah, but, where was that? If it wasn't at Mackey?
I honestly, I don't remember that part. Let me see if I can see the article that I was reading. It just says the first time in 20 years, or in 20 years that they've met on the hardwood. It might say later in the article, but our buddy Dustin Schutte wrote an article about it, about the game itself, and but I don't know where it was, but it does say that they won the last time that they played, and for the first time since the 05-06, so literally 20 years ago. Were you born then?
I was like turning one, probably.
Okay. So barely.
Yeah.
Well, those are two different. We have two different programs now. Obviously, Matt Painter's a much different coach. He was in his first campaign with Purdue at that time, and the Boilermakers were pretty rough at that point. And the Aces, I believe, at that time had a pretty decent team at the time, and they beat Purdue. But you know what? This time they come into Mackey. They have a relatively new roster. They have 6 returners from their roster from last year, but they have 9 new, 5 transfers in, and 4 freshmen. A couple of the guys that we were talking about off air that have come to the Aces. A couple of players that have had some pretty decent runs in March when it comes to their previous places. But the big one that we were talking about is Alex Hemingway. He played at Vanderbilt, but we talked, and I think he was injured for most of the season that he played there. But he was also on the Clemson team that I believe it was 2 years ago when Purdue went to the national championship game that they made the run to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and I believe he made or played some meaningful minutes off the bench is kind of what I gathered. So it'll be interesting to see, how he plays, especially because he hasn't played a lot of major basketball recently. And also, he's probably their number one option as far as what their offense is going to look like. So it's just really hard to tell like what this team is going to look like as far as how they're going to play. What guys are going to make the biggest impacts, and then trying to compare them to like Purdue's guys. Hemingway, while he's done some things and has some experience, like, can he actually play at the level of what Purdue can, especially in Mackey Arena for the season opener. So a lot of unknown, but yeah,
right. He's a
talented kid.
6'4" guard, senior from Newburgh, Indiana. So he's an Indiana boy coming to play his senior season in Indiana, and then tipping off against the number one team in the country in Indiana. So a lot of Indiana going on for Hemingway there. But he's 6'4", so you got to think that he's going to be around. I don't know that he's the point guard. I don't know. We don't know starting lineups really of these guys. They've got some guys that are older and that I would think maybe are also starting guards, obviously. But he might see some time against Braden Smith, and that in having not seen him, we don't know what kind of athlete he is and how well he'll defend. But Braden Smith, if you have to tip off and start playing against him, welcome to big time basketball, I guess, huh?
Yeah, there's that. I've heard too there's probably a freshman guard that might start or play for Evansville that's like was a 3-star recruit, and so there's been talk about like, oh well, Braden Smith was a 3-star recruit, and here he is, like, so there's going to be a lot of these types of guys that are going to go up against this Purdue backcourt, and it's like you've got the experience and talent combination of Purdue versus some inexperience from Evansville, plus just guys that haven't seen the same level of competition, and it's just going to be an interesting kind of matchup and storyline. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how those guys handle it.
The Purple Aces also have a couple of they have some size. We were talking about that. 4 guys 6'9" or taller, and that's pretty good. They've also, I don't know if you've looked at their roster. They've got a couple of 6'10" and a 6'11" forward, both from Australia. So maybe Joshua Hughes, who is a junior 6'10" forward, might get a little bit of time against Mr. Oscar Clough. A couple of Aussies going at it in the blocks.
Yeah, that's a good point. 3 combined players from Australia going to be in this game, and that's a good point. I think we're going to see a lot of like Evansville playing 2 bigs at the same time, like 2 guys around 6'9", 6'10", or taller a piece, which will be good for Purdue because obviously Trakoff and Wren, Oscar Clough playing together, we have to see them start to get more comfortable with each other. A lot of talk about how Trakoff and Wren has just kind of struggled or not really looked like himself these first 2 exhibition games, and how the combo between TKR and Clough has just been a little clunky.
Is it possible? I'm going to jump in here real quick and ask you, do you think it's possible because he's getting used to being just the 4? You know what I mean? To whereas last year after the second or into the second game, all of a sudden he was the big man for the rest of the year, and he played that way for most of the season. Is it possible that that's maybe what it is?
Yeah, probably not that, and to the extent of like, when Caleb First was playing next to TKR, like I still think you could consider Caleb First as like he was the guy at the 5 and TKR was still the 4. Either way, they were 2 bigs playing next to each other, but Caleb First would just get out of the way, and TKR had all this space to operate.
Right.
And First would come in for the rebounds, and potentially if like TKR had a lot of defenders and First was able to find an opening to get an easy basket. But it was TKR's show. Like, it was get out of the way, let TKR go to work. Clough, on the other hand, is in there more for the rebounding and also has skill to score. So they want him probably a little bit more involved, especially within the paint. But with TKR trying to do his thing at the same time, it's just a guy that has more skill and should be more involved in what's going on in the lane at the same time as TKR trying to make it work. So it's how do you kind of balance those 2 things? And yeah, I think TKR has just been a little bit, just hasn't quite figured out how to do that again, because it hasn't happened since he played with Zach Edey, and when you're playing with Zach Edey, you're not the first option in the post anyway. So it's just, trying to figure that out. And that's why I think we've seen him have more success when Daniel Jacobson was in the game and could stretch the floor, shoot the ball from the perimeter, and just kind of be a bit different of a threat than Clough. So that's kind of what I'm looking for within this game, because Braden and Fletch should have no problem. Like, they should this backcourt from Evansville should not really put up a major challenge to them. Purdue should shoot the lights out. It's at Mackey. They're a more talented team. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as the size from Evansville, plus the fact that Purdue's had this struggle of like, how do we make this work with our new guys and with TKR playing more exclusively at the 4, I think this is a great opportunity to start to figure that out and get the feel for how this front court can work together.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I've been thinking about the whole Jacobson Clough combo and what that dynamic's going to look like. I think, and this is just me having sat and thought about this. I think with Jacobson in the game, you might see more of a last year's TKR, to where he's more in the, not that Jacobson won't be at the rim or in the post, but he will be able to pull his defender out away from the blocks because he is more of a threat potentially from a more distance. Clough's not going to shoot a ton from more than 10 feet out, period. It's just that's not his style. That's not what he's probably going to do much at all this year. But with Jacobson, he's got the potential where he can be a little bit, not a perimeter necessarily, but more of a jump shooter potential. And if that can happen, he can pull out, and that gives TKR more of that room that you were talking about on the offensive end, to where he can do his thing, where he and let's call it what it was. He was dominant at the hoop offensively last year, but plain and simple. I mean, you don't make as many or the most 2-point shots in the country if you're not a dominant force at the, in that area. He didn't have to shoot from distance. He didn't have to go outside 10, 15 feet much at all last year. Well, he couldn't, for most part, but this year you may see TKR doing that too. When Clough's in there, you may see TKR, getting used to moving out a little bit further and taking his guy off the dribble, because he's got that capability as well. I think, let's say it this way, I think this could turn into a very big season for Trey Kaufman-Renn.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel Jacobson, like you said, because of his ability to stretch the floor, can provide that look. And I think back to Zach Edey in that year, where while Trey Kaufman-Renn was the starter, and it did help to have that kind of two-headed monster in the post as guys that could post up on either side, they really were kind of more effective when Gillis was in the game, and he was playing that 4 and was gestured out as a lethal shooter on the perimeter, but then could crash the boards. I think Jacobson provides kind of a more similar look to that. It's just, instead of it being the big center in the middle with 4 guys on the outside, it's TKR as the 4 with a big guy on the outside, but still 4 shooters, still space on the interior for your best interior scorer to go to work. It'd be interesting though, because the flip side of that is Daniel Jacobson, you want him in there to help the rebounding game as well. So
Right.
If you scoot him out all the way to the perimeter and have him kind of as a guy to spread the floor, shoot, and clear the space for Trey Kaufman-Renn, it kind of probably hurts his ability to rebound as a 7'4" guy. And for Purdue, rebounding is a huge deal, and you want Daniel Jacobson to have the opportunity to clean up the offensive glass. So that's kind of the balance of that as well. And the same thing with Clough when he's in the game. But, I think Painter has figured stuff like this out before, and I think these early games, like I said, are a great opportunity to figure out more of how this works.
I'm not at all saying that they're going to just keep Jacobson out there all the time, but it will give him the opportunities, since he is more of a versatile shooter, and the ability to stretch, like you said, stretch the defense out, especially the big defense. Because you know what? You put a small guy on Jacobson, you go post him up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the difficulty. So unless they're playing 2 bigs, like you said, for Evansville's sake, for this game, if they're playing 2 bigs, you're going to have one mismatch, because either TKR is going to, if you've got, let's say it this way, if you play 2 bigs, TKR is going to have a mismatch. He's going to be able to maybe dribble, drive, get to the hoop more on the big man. Plus, he knows how to play on the post against a guy that's bigger than him and still be really effective. You put a smaller guy on Jacobson because he's stretching it out. Well, let's put the big guy down in the post. Well, then Jacobson goes down and posts that smaller guy up. They're a matchup nightmare for teams, period. Because even if you've got height, you try to put two big guys in there. Well, guess what? You're going to have a mismatch with the shorter TKR, who's a lot more athletic and versatile than any of our opponents' big guys. I mean, period. And I know it seems like we're talking more about just what Purdue is. We both and this analysis of Evansville, we've kind of just done it. I mean, we've talked about what we know and what we anticipate from them, but at the same time, this is more of Purdue figuring out who they are while they're playing an opponent that matters.
Yeah, especially when it's a team that it's hard to know what they're going to bring because they've had the roster turnover. They haven't played yet this season, so there's very little film to analyze and scouts to make. So not that I'm sure Purdue has scouted and done some things to prepare for this game, unlike some of their exhibitions. But it's difficult because it's very new and there isn't a whole lot of data to look at. But yeah, it's when you play these games, so much of it is how comfortable can we get our team with each other and with what we're trying to do. And we talked a lot about the front court. It's not just the front court. These backcourt guys, just simple things like making shots when they're open, running the offense, especially the newer ones like Benter and Omer Meyer, Antoine West. I thought the UIndy game was huge for those guys. You know, West missed all his shots from the outside against Kentucky and then missed his first probably, 2 or 3 against UIndy before he finally made a couple. And I feel like that was a big stride. Like, okay, once the first one goes down, you start to feel more confident. Same thing for Jack Benter and Omer as well. So even in the backcourt, seeing those guys start to get more comfortable, feel like they belong a little bit and figure some things out. These 2 games that the Purdue's going to play are going to be huge for that because Bama's waiting in about a week and a half. And just going into Tuscaloosa, no matter how good Alabama ends up being, is not going to be easy.
Well, and I think that it's very helpful, like you said, it's very helpful for these new guys to the program and to college basketball to get a couple of games under your belt with a friendly crowd and have it be tomorrow or tonight is going to be so loud just starting out, excuse me, early. It's going to be so loud. And these guys are going to get the feel for a college environment. I know that Rupp was very loud, but this is a friendly environment for a game that matters. Okay, we're getting the things in under our belt. Then you got to go to Tuscaloosa, and that's like you said, it's about a week and a half away, and we'll get to that when it comes down the pike. But it's definitely something that those guys, like you mentioned, Benter, Meyer, Antoine West, unless we hear something otherwise, coming, depending on red shirt rules and things like that. And if that even comes into fruition, I haven't seen anything up to this point that says he's gonna or he's not gonna yet. Yeah, just, that. And if he doesn't play against Evansville, then maybe we can see, okay, he's probably going to redshirt. I don't know. I hate speculating, but, if they're up 25 points and we haven't seen Antoine West Jr. in the game yet, you kind of maybe know what's going to happen. But point being is they get these starts at home, and it's a friendly crowd to them to this point, to where if they make a mistake, it's not gonna incite the crowd to get louder. It's gonna, they're be able to make a mistake and still recover and not have it be completely deafening to them. To where if they get a couple of games under their belt, they get to go to Tuscaloosa and play, like you said, a Bama team that maybe doesn't matter how good they're going to be at the end of the season. Tuscaloosa is a tough place to go.
Yeah, like you said, they shouldn't be punished as much for their mistakes, which is it's just helpful because once you do, then it gets a lot easier to continue making the same mistakes and getting flustered and things like that. So yeah, it's just going to be a great opportunity to get comfortable and figure out who they are. But at the same time, it's not like it's a little bit different of a feel than it was with Indy because this is still a game. Like this is a for real game, and even looking back to last year, those first couple 3 games Purdue played against mid-major opponents weren't quite as smooth sailing, I think, as what we would have wanted or expected.
Right.
I don't think that will be the case this year because I think Purdue has a better idea of kind of who they are, how they play, and they just have a more talented and developed team than what they did at this point last year. But like, it's as much as Purdue is going to try and learn about themselves and grow within themselves in this game, it's also like you got to win the game and you've got to go in with the mentality that like, yeah, we're going to get better, but like we got to win this basketball game because now everything is for real. Any loss goes on your resume as a loss. Any win is all of those things are affecting ultimately seeding, and we see more and more how these early games can impact that.
Well, for Evansville, they do have the reigning defensive player of the year from the Missouri Valley Conference from last year, and that's Connor Turnbull. He's, I believe, he's 6'11", I think, isn't he? Is that what we? Or
I'm seeing
6'10".
6'10", yeah.
He's 6'10", but the reigning Missouri Valley Conference player of the defensive player of the year. So he's got some defensive capability. He averaged about 2 blocks a game last year, and only about 4.3 rebounds, but that's not bad. But then they do have pretty good size at their guard positions, and Kelshin Porter. He is a transfer in to Evansville. He averaged 10.8 points, 3.3 rebounds, and a 1 assist a game at Radford, I believe, is where he was at last year. So, but he can shoot the three, but his big thing is get to the rim, and either he's got some athleticism. So I would think somebody like C.J. Cox is probably going to be on him starting out the game. Assuming that C.J. Cox is the starter. I haven't seen any starting lineup yet, but it's one of those that you would assume that he was in the starting lineup for both of the exhibition games. You got to safely assume that he's probably going to be in the lineup starting out against Evansville. He'll probably match up with Porter, and it's a matter of not letting Porter get to the hoop, but then also hope that Clough and TKR are at the rim to protect the rim. So definitely some things to be aware of with Evansville. That's not to say that you're not afraid. I mean, I don't think Purdue comes into any game where they're afraid of anybody. That would be really odd to see them be scared, or seem like it. But they need to be aware, because if they don't, they can cause some problems for them.
Yeah, and I feel like another thing that's always kind of been a concern with this Purdue team, especially defensively, is like how they handle the athletic wings and the guys that are going to slash to the rim. So I'm glad that they're going to get exposed to that, even if it's on a very toned down level from Evansville compared to what you might see from the better teams in the country. But that's all going to be really helpful for them.
Well, you don't start on the expert level when you're starting out. You got to work your way up to that point.
Well, and at the same time, they saw that with Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky kind of exposed them with that. It didn't matter, and now they get to kind of take the step-by-step process to getting better and figuring that out.
What we learn against Kentucky. Okay, we're going to put that to work against Evansville. And we're going to have an athletic wing. We're going to have an athletic guy that's going to get to the hoop. We've got to work on it, and it's not going to be the same type of athlete. I'm not saying taking anything away from Kelshin Porter. I'm just saying he's not a Kentucky, one of those
not
athletic. Yeah, he's not Owe. So it's definitely it's something that allows the Boilers to work on getting better, because when they see a team that has a better athletic wing, Michigan keeps coming to my mind. You're going to see some really athletic guards from Michigan. there's more than that, but Michigan, for some reason, is the first team that always comes to me when it comes to that. And you know what? You're going to be able to work your way and get better and be better by the time the Wolverines come into Mackey Arena.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, Michigan looking really good over Oakland. Like that was completely blew Oakland out of the water. So sometimes you can see these teams struggle early. Like Michigan struggled in the past early in some non-conference games.
Right.
Does not look like that's the case right now, which means I think we can expect Michigan to be about as good as they're projected to be and be a threat in that Big Ten. So, yeah.
Nothing's going to beat 40-0.
Yeah, we'll see. Nothing's impossible.
Well, I honestly, before we sign off, we just got a couple of more minutes. What is your biggest thing that you want to see happen tonight from the Boilermakers that kind of shows they're on the right track and things that you anticipate them working on and getting done right?
I think if I had to pick one thing that I really want to see, that would be about the best sign that we could see is Oscar Clough just having a good game, whether it's scoring
Agreed.
double figures or just being a monster on the boards and meshing well with Trey Kaufman-Renn. If we see Oscar Clough really emerge as kind of who we've expected him to be, I think that's probably the best thing we could see from Purdue tonight. And then also just efficiency and confidence from pretty much everybody across the board as far as shooting and those types of things. Like we just got to see this team start to get comfortable with who they are, because while they brought back a lot, there's still some new faces that are making this roster different. And so the more comfortable and the more confident they can be, the more dangerous they can be.
Well, some of those familiar faces are playing different roles.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I'm going to go a step further and say Clough and Jacobson, how they work in protecting the rim, in their rebounding. Those were huge issues. I mean, we talked about it day in and day out last year, where Purdue's got to guard the rim. They've got to rebound. Those were two of the 5 losses came from the inability to rebound or protect the rim. At least that many. And so those two filling the gaps and adjusting and making it to where Purdue's those shortcomings aren't as huge of a shortcoming. They may still be a little bit of a liability while they get used to meshing and things like that. But as long as we see some progress, can't get in foul trouble. I mean, Oscar Clough had 3 fouls against UIndy like that, and it forced Jacobson to play more in there. Not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's forcing it, and if he plays because he warrants it, that's great, but don't force it. I also want to see how Jakari Harris, takes that successful exhibition season and works it into his minutes that he gets in his rotation, into his rotations, and just see if that is if he's going to cause some issues, and I use the air quotes there, with, hey, I need more playing time because I'm going to be one of those dudes. That's a great problem to have if you're Matt Painter.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. I think there are a lot of things you could say that it would just be good for Purdue. I mean,
yeah.
You didn't even talk about Braden and Fletch.
No.
They haven't been great at all in those first 2 exhibitions, and I don't think that's a concern because we know what they can do and we know what they're going to be capable of. But at the same time, it'd be great to see it. So,
I guess the big thing will be is if that continues for the next couple of games, then we wonder what's wrong. Why aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm not anticipating that. I'm anticipating them being just as involved as they have been every other season they've been in Old Gold and Black. They're going to be contributing and just as big. They just haven't made a lot of noise into exhibition games, so now that they matter, I think we're going to see 2 different seniors coming out there playing tonight. So I agree. We didn't mention their names at all.
Right.
The whole time that we were talking about this, because I think we just anticipate they're like the fall coming around and the leaves turning. They're going to show up and they're going to be here. And I think that's the kind of, don't let me speak for you, but if I assume that's kind of what we both anticipate, which is why we didn't mention them at all.
Yeah.
But that brings us to the end of our first regular season Boilermaker Lounge this season. Yes, it is almost time to tip off. We did want to announce that we're going to start doing a crossover post game reaction with our buddy Dustin Schutte, who does Boiler Banter. We're going to do a post game reaction to most, if not all, games, depending on schedules. Sometimes schedules don't play out, or if they're like on the West Coast, I'm not doing a 2:30 a.m. Post game reaction, but that's me being selfish, I guess. I don't know, but we will be doing a post game reaction with Dustin Schutte. Most games this season, they will be YouTube exclusive on the Lounge Sports YouTube channel. So our buddy Dustin, us doing some Boiler Lounge banter, Boilermaker I don't know. It's a mash.
In the lounge.
There we go. Banter in the lounge. There we go. Something. Purdue banter in the lounge.
There we go. Yeah.
We'll figure out the name once we get going. But it will be after the game. Dustin will be in West Lafayette, so we'll take the air, so to speak, shortly after the press conferences after the game is over, and we'll talk about what we saw from the Boilermakers tonight against the Evansville Purple Aces. 6:30 p.m. Eastern, live at Mackey Arena. I think it's on the Big Ten Network tonight. So
it'll be on the network.
So tune in, watch it, and then you know what? Flip over to YouTube and find us, and we'll talk about what we thought too. So, but we're really excited to be able to work with Dustin on that one. We have fun talking with him, and maybe talking about a huge Boilermaker win tonight. That's what we're hoping to see. So. Thanks so much for joining us this Tuesday on Boilermaker Lounge. We will be back on Friday to give our reaction in the lounge on the game against Evansville, but we'll also preview the game Friday against Oakland. So the Grizzlies come in to Mackey Arena after getting beat up by the Wolverines there in Ann Arbor, but we'll be able to talk about the Grizzlies, and then we'll go into the weekend, hopefully 2-0. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, and plenty of time to prepare for Alabama, which will be that Thursday, week from Thursday, right?
Yep. I believe so, yes. I don't have the Purdue schedule right on up.
Yeah, should be well.
I should. It should be my wallpaper, but it's not.
Yeah, well, sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on Boilermaker Lounge. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprenger. We'll see you on Friday.